welcome to episode 9 of Superconnector Stories. We're really excited about episode 9 because we're winding down to the end, and sometimes you got to save the best for last. We brought on a dear friend of mine, Travis Sky Ingersoll. So this is our second Sky. And Travis is a sexologist, a professor, an author. He has the third edition of his book coming out that he wrote with Dr. Satterley, Sexuality Concepts for Social Workers. And he happens to be a brilliant mind. And that's Travis.
Thank you.
How was that as an
That
intro?
was beautiful. Thank you.
So let's get to it.
Okay.
I met you in 2007.
Wow, really?
Yeah. You're not good at recalling that? It's been a while. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I think you're the guest that I've known for the longest coming on the show. So Travis, do you remember anything about how we first met?
I just remember us being in classes and in the sexuality program at Widener.
Mm-hmm.
Well, little known fact, you don't talk much about your background in sexuality. So let's just give our audiences a little bit of that too, because we're here often talking about the matchmaker side and the superconnector side, but Michal also has
Sexuality
education, and background in education in this field. So
Yeah. So I was really interested in pursuing a graduate degree in sexuality. I was interested in like relationships and roles and biology, everything like that about sexuality. But I kind of crafted it into my minor, but I wanted to delve in further and I met Dr. Koch. So I ended up in this program. And I think when I got to Widener, I realized it was majority people who identified as women, maybe some people who were transitioning, maybe a sprinkle of gay men. And then there was Travis.
Yeah.
You were the weird
I
one.
was the token heterosexual cisgender pink skinner.
It's the only one.
Yep.
did you find that most of the people who were in the program were there for their people can get education for lots of reasons,
Right.
and the motivation for that can vary. Was it mostly people who were going through their own journeys and trying to educate themselves? It seems like perhaps, I don't want to speak for you, but you're also this lifelong educator and you've been working into teaching other people. So we were all there from different perspectives, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, most people didn't know enough because, our country doesn't teach us anything
Our
about
educational
sexuality.
system fits us.
And a lot of them wanted to be sex therapists, and especially sex therapists who didn't accept insurance. So, just high-end clientele and things like that. And so my dual degree in social work and human sexuality, and I've always believed that we need to give back. So I got into sexuality because in the mental health field, when I graduated with a psychology degree, every single person I worked with after 28-day programs, I helped them get their lives back together, get their kids back in apartments, drop-in centers that I worked at. Every traumatized person had sexual trauma in their past. Every single one of them. So, and that's what actually led me to the sexuality program, because I wanted to learn how to best heal those people, or at least put the information out there for everyone to help them kind of walk that path to heal themselves.
Well, and that trauma specifically related to this topic probably sits in such an untouchable place.
Yeah.
If you don't have a way of breaking down those walls, right? People stray away from these conversations. They're uncomfortable with these conversations within themselves, within boundaries, within other people.
Mm-hmm.
So unless I think you can come from a place where you are sensitive to the trauma and able to bridge that gap, that's a part of people's trauma. People come with all kinds. That probably gets buried away and stays as a nidus and infects all the rest of the relationships potentially moving forward. So
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people come with the intention to become a therapist. I was interested in education as well and having conversations, things that are often stigmatized. Let's talk about sex in prison. Let's talk about people who have sex who have STIs, all of these things.
Right.
And you were the token white guy
Yep.
in our program. And I think I remember meeting your wife a little bit more than meeting you. But I think what struck me was that you were getting your PhD and you were a student, but you were brought into one of my classes to teach a class about research methods.
Yeah.
And I just saw you shift from being one person to like a different life form. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm always super nervous before I do any kind of public speaking thing, and then something just turns on, and I don't even remember what happened usually afterwards. I'm like, did that go well? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, that went great.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, so I don't know, a lot of practice, maybe from being a camp counselor from early, and then doing a lot of youth work, youth leadership work in Syracuse, New York. YMCA gave me an award for the Volunteer Youth of the Year. I went and talked to all the politicians of why youth programs need more funding.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I guess I've been doing it for a long time. It is kind of like the other half of me.
Yeah, but it's a side of you that like not a lot of people get to see unless they're in your classroom, unless they're,
Right.
your student. So that's why I keep on roping you into things and you're not allowed to say no. Um,
I tried for many years. Like I got to one point where I was like, you know what, I got to start saying yes.
yeah. But I was just one of the many women in the program. You're like, wow, there's so many of them. I have to hold on to my masculine energy, right?
Well, yeah,
I am curious, what
guess.
was it like
Right?
in a classroom like that that's, predominantly identified as women? Were you the token male, I meant by the when you have to answer a question or give your
Oh yeah.
perspective or give
Let's
your
get the man's
well, that's why I'm saying,
perspective.
did that happen? Right?
And
Oh,
I'd be
you
like, I'm just
male
one.
perspective.
All right. And
Yeah.
it's a very unique perspective. But no, I never felt 100% kind of accepted. Kind of always like there's a lot of suspicion around everything I did. So I had to be very careful about what I said and just to kind of watch my behavior because it's very easy to become the scapegoat
Right.
when you're the only person.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody's coming in with a trauma and we're using this space to work it out. Like you have to understand that a part of studying sexuality is a lot of videos. We watched a lot of videos about a lot of things so that we could be confronted with things that would come up in a therapy situation or in a classroom situation. So if somebody's going to ask you about this, then you should be like, oh yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about, or oh, interesting, let me research that further. So we would visually see things so that you can reach this level of discomfort in a SAR.
Well, that makes that I reflect on so much with my experience as an emergency room provider, physician, right? Because so much of what you even talked about in some of the reading I've done about the work you do, and even just in this few minutes we've been talking about coming from the perspective of someone who's been through trauma and being able to connect or relate to them. Same thing in an emergency setting.
Mm,
Part of the training is desensitization, right?
yes.
So you have to go through enough of the experience so that your response isn't going to cause an emotional discomfort or a trauma response or make somebody with your nonverbal language, right?
Yep.
Whether it's eye language, body contact, the way you move your body language, all of those things affect somebody's sense of safety with you. And if you are dealing with highly traumatic situations and you can't communicate or keep your eyes from bugging out of your head
Hmm.
in the natural, impulsive way we would be when we're seeing something new for the first time.
Hmm.
It's all about desensitizing yourself to those things so that you can bridge those gaps, I think, later.
That's true.
It's the same thing we did in the ER. That's what simulation is essentially for. Prepare yourself emotionally and mentally so that you can communicate effectively through
Yeah.
trauma.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I want like when I teach sexuality, whether it's a class that's just about sexuality or it's kind of infused in other classes. Before I get into any topic that could be triggering, I let them know. I was like,
Yeah.
listen, at any point, if this gets kind of too close to home, you can go for a walk,
Yeah.
get some hot cocoa, do what you got to do, and then just come back quietly and sit back down. And if you're getting a reaction from me, I want you to be honest and give me that reaction because I'm helping you
Work through those.
work
Yeah.
through those things before you're working with people. And just like you said, your reaction could hurt them or shut them off and
Correct.
then destroy your alliance, your therapeutic
And
alliance.
sense of safety moving forward for them to even be able to open their mouth to talk about these things.
Right.
So Travis, like in your work as a professor, as an educator, do people come to you and share their sexual trauma with you?
Not often. When they do, though, I make sure that I have all the resources on campus. I say, would you like me to walk you to the center
Hmm.
and things like that? But um, typically, I let them know in the very beginning, here are all the resources, right? So if things do come up, these are the people you want to go talk to.
Mm.
Because my role as an educator is to let them know what's going on and give them all the resources that they need to work through it.
And
Mm.
get in touch with their sense of it, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily fix
Mm.
every step, but that's the beauty, I think, in what you do, right?
Mhm.
Because coming from the trauma sensitive perspective, working through consent with boundaries,
Yep.
the conversation, and then following up with the resources that fall outside of your
It
jurisdiction.
makes
It's
sense.
exactly what makes sense.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite sexuality topic to learn about? And what is your favorite sexuality topic to teach about?
Ooh.
Hmm. To learn about, because I'm in the sex coaching program right now. I'm going through it, so I love learning about it all. This is the one
True,
area.
lifelong educator,
Yeah,
learner. I mean, lifelong learner.
I'm a super nerd when it comes to this, and it's the only area that I've ever realized that I can learn forever and never get bored.
Mm.
And there's so much to know
Hmm.
that we don't know,
Hmm.
right? So it's just never ending nerddom for me. That's so
So
all
what's
of
the
it.
hot
Really is.
topic right now? What gets your brain on fire? As Michal and I like to say it when our brains are overwhelmed, we're like, my brain's on fire. Sometimes we just emoji the fire, like fire, 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 and she knows exactly where my head's at. So when is your brain on fire?
Well, when we're getting into sacred sexuality,
Okay.
like that's,
Can you explain what that means?
yeah, basically, it doesn't matter your religion, but how your sexual energies connect with your spiritual energies
Hmm.
and how those always go together. I've always felt that they're one and the same, but most people haven't. And they really disconnect sexuality from spirit,
Spirituality.
and especially with religions, making us so negative, and that this is what we have to kind of fight against when it's such a natural thing for everyone. But because we're taught that it's such a bad thing, we use it in very bad ways.
And we're taught that it's a bad thing, particularly connected to certain religions and cultures.
Yeah.
So that
And even within
brings
those religions, a huge variety of belief systems depending on the
absolutely. And it's not
denominations.
all, of course, just from that. There's family elements,
Yep.
community elements that also overlap those religious elements too.
Hmm.
But I can imagine the disconnect that people feel.
It's amazing how sexuality can be such a sensual, spiritual experience. And then like we were preparing a course and we were and Travis made a few slides about like the sexual response cycle, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but like a lot of
Mm.
sexologists historically have been studying people, researching people to look at like the pattern of what happens and like how women differ from men and how they reach orgasm and the time and the all these things. Travis made like 5 slides and I was like, Travis, do they need 5 slides? He was like,
Yeah,
yeah, they
more.
they
Yeah.
Five
he was like, well,
plus.
there's this model and there's this model and there's this research.
I'm
You know what I
I
mean?
am a
Yep.
very well educated physician, right? Through all the classic elements that you go through for an allopathic physician to be taught and educated. And we spent almost no time in our educational career
Hmm.
on this topic.
Hmm.
We certainly learned about the differences organically, biologically between men and women and the differences hormonally, but minimally. Even that was taught minimally. And even down to how much we learned about, ovulation and pregnancy as a area
Postpartum.
postpartum, right? All of
Mhm.
those elements was very, very minimal. Now, of course, medicine has a huge curriculum, and you want to make sure you learn the physiology of the heart and the lungs. But
Yeah.
let's not say that that's any less important than the way that our clitorises and our penises work, right?
Yep.
Like, not at all.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous from a scientific and a health based perspective to believe that.
I have I have a little story that who knows why I ended up a matchmaker and a sexologist at the same time, but like my mom tells me about how when I was in when I was like in preschool or something, I was like, "Mom, do you know what we do at preschool?" She was like, "What?" I was like, "Well, when the boys go to the bathroom, we like look underneath the stalls and we look to see their penises." And she told my great aunt, who was like a retired physician from Latvia, and she like told her the story, and she was like, "What? I didn't learn that word even until med school."
Well, so, but see, and now when I hear that story, what that makes me sad because the reality is when do kids, even in our current structure, get exposed to this? At best, fourth grade health class. Best fourth grade health class.
Yeah.
And in my
In our
opinion,
culture,
I said that
in our
in our
society.
society, in our working system, and what we have here, what we went through, if you were raised and educated here, but in America, and what our kids are going to experience as a mother of a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old boys. These are questions and things. Let me be honest. If we were waiting for fourth grade health, there are a multitude of conversations that my sons and I would not have had if they
Hmm.
were sitting on those conversations. They've been asking these questions for years, years. And let me be honest, if I weren't there to give them the answers, what would they be doing? Looking under the stalls, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So we hit that late. We educate late. We stigmatize this. We don't hold safe environments for even our kids to ask
Mm.
often. And so what does that leave us with? Right? Looking under
Educate,
stalls, educating ourselves.
educate late, stigmatize early, taboo early.
That
What are you
again,
noticing
formula
the
for
same trend?
failure
Are you noticing that same trend with,
with
like, sex education
with
with
younger
kids?
people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. When we talk about like when did you learn about sexuality formally? Still, they're talking about one time in gym class, like me in ninth
Yeah.
grade,
What happened to
and
locker room talk?
yeah, that. But the gym teacher showed like a 1970s film,
Mm.
and they showed two things. One, an STI documentary with the worst cases
Right. They
of
want to
STIs to scare the
scare
crap
you.
out of you, and then they showed birthing, and that was it.
The
And
pain of
so,
birth.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically, this is what's going to happen.
And you know what? I stand by those things. They should be known,
They
right?
should be
As you're a
known.
doctor. No, no, they
That's
should be known, but that isn't the only picture, of
no,
course, right?
no.
I'm pretty horrified, as a woman, as a mother, that I forgot what it was called. It was, that birthing video that I think a lot of us
I
have watched
saw
from the
it.
70s. I remember she had us watch it in slow-mo, and
Slow-mo.
to have a birthing experience, to be in a
Talk
s
about a
I
nightmare
know,
waiting to
but
happen.
I would say to be using birthing
A
as
scare
a
tactic.
scare
Yep.
tactic to teenagers
So sad.
is
Sounds
just
so many
deeply,
things.
deeply sad because we came into the world through being birthed in some way. I don't
Well,
know.
let me be honest, that starts off a whole nother problem, right? About birthing and what's natural birth and what's painful and what childbearing is and did you deliver naturally? And we
Yeah.
start that at such a young age, literally with that video, right? Like
Yep.
all of this around how our bodies work and what is supposed to be organic and
Yeah.
how is miscommunicated
Well,
at
now we have
such a young
porn.
age.
Now we have porn to teach us about a lot of functions, and children are being exposed to porn and sexual imagery way earlier than
Then
I
they
would say the way we
developmentally
were.
even are
Oh yeah.
probably able to conceptualize.
Yeah, and they could try to because they all get little iPads in their schools, and they put all these blocks on. But these kids are smart, and I remember
And
my
so are the
daughter.
people on the other end. They want to be able to break through all those
Yeah,
filters. They're
well, the
targeting your
kids
kids.
hack through. And second grade, she was telling me how they hack through so they can get to their YouTube
Right,
channels
whatever
that
they
they
want to
wanted to
get through.
see.
Yeah,
But second grade, they're figuring out how to get through
of
it.
course.
So, and they're gonna find the really questionable material, the free, bad quality, violent porn.
Yeah. How has being a sexologist, like, how have you shifted now that you become a father also?
Nothing's shifted. I just feel a greater responsibility to make sure that she grows up without shame,
Yeah.
understanding her body, understanding boundaries. Um, because the women in my life growing up, they didn't have that kind of role model. Their sexuality was shamed all the time and punished. So whatever happens with Freya, she knows that she has a sex educator as a dad. So she knows what I do. I talk about it and she asks me questions. She knew her body parts when she was younger.
And the right words for
The
them, of
right
course.
words.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. So, and you need that. And so, as she's developing now, and she's only 8, she's turning 9, she's already starting to develop. She's had to get her trainer bras, and she's all proud of them. And she's like, "Why are other people? They're telling me that this isn't appropriate." I go, "It's not, but for their family."
Yeah,
I go, "We
their
remember,
boundaries.
yeah, your dad's an educator about this, so of course it's gonna be a little bit different here."
I mean, I feel like my kids are experiencing something very similar at 10 and 7. They have a physician and a disabled mother, and we talk very openly. We always did, long before even I was in a wheelchair. But yeah, I mean, I feel similarly about my children who are similar in age. Just a much different kind of communication on an everyday level,
Yeah.
much level of a different level of safety that they, I hope, will continue to feel safe to talk to me about whatever it is that's in their head without shame.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of kids, maybe our generation, grew up thinking about stranger danger, not knowing the words for things. And I think that our generation, we are raising our children differently. Um, I don't know, maybe in our
Mm.
context, I can't speak for everyone, where we want to have these open conversations that we didn't have.
Yeah, but we also both went to a sexuality program.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Well, I also have to just say, I think sitting on the other end as a 42-year-old looking back, I will speak openly about this, grow up in a family where there were two topics that were off subject, but everything else was talked about intellectually, educationally, ad nauseum, and totally ridiculous, right? But when it came to alcohol, specifically drinking, and anything associated with drinking, parties drinking, there was a hardcore, just no, but not a discussion around that.
Mm.
Not why, not the safety issues. Same thing with sex.
Right.
And on a different day, we could talk about how both those things ended up for me. But for now, the sex conversation is something that I'm choosing intentionally to not repeat the same way, because I can see in my own growth and trajectory and journey how what my kids are thinking and experiencing is exactly the same thing that I thought and wondered at the same time. But I was never validated. I was never given a safe space to ask those questions. So partly it's that I know what's in their head. I remember what it was like at 10 and 7. So if I know, it would be a failure as a parent to assume that they are not having those thoughts and not having the same questions.
Hmm.
So the only thing I can do is hold a safe space for them to express it.
Yeah.
And have lots of books.
Well, and encourage them also to go elsewhere. I mean, I don't want the only opinion
Yeah.
for them to be mine, but for them to have resources and know where other safe places are to get
I
those
know.
pieces of information
Yep.
safely.
All right. Now, what do you like to teach about? 'Cause we only
Yeah, that's
like
the
what you
half.
like
We
to
said
learn
what you
about.
learned about. What's your favorite to teach about?
I love teaching about sexual orientation and the science starting since like 1947,
Say that
all the way up in,
loudly and proud.
oh yeah, all the way.
Say that again with your
Yeah,
chest.
yeah, yeah. And how it's
1940.
always showed us exactly the same thing.
Correct.
And that is that the vast majority are not just biologically same sex attracted or other sex attracted. They're somewhere in between. And we're talking
Continuum, yeah.
about the vast majority. We're talking like 10% is seen as like heterosexual or homosexual. And everyone else is somewhere in between, with about 1% of the human population being asexual. They don't have the circuitry. They don't fantasize about sex. They don't pick up the pheromones. They just don't want it. And that's fine. They still might want a lot of cuddles, a lot of skin
And have
to
different
skin,
sensory needs and
being in
different
love and
emotional
things like that.
needs.
They just, yeah. And they'll also pleasure themselves. And I've talked to quite a few people who are asexual. I say, well, what do you fantasize about? And they're like, well, there's this song I really love. Or they'll talk about colors and the way that these colors. So it's just a very sensual, pleasurable experience. And they do it because it feels good.
Yeah.
And other reasons, I needed to go to sleep and I needed a way to get me there. Or I was so stressed out and I knew this would de-stress me. So all the reasons that everybody else.
But does it ring to you how much of that's so biological, right? Like it's
Oh
truly
yeah,
just
it's
so
a human thing. But
biologic.
why I love teaching about it is that every single class that I've showed them all the research, I've had them talk about it, talk about why fantasy is such a huge thing, right? And how people smells. And when you kiss people, and the chemistry in your saliva will tell your brain certain things, tell your body whether or not you're compatible with that person, even if they look gorgeous. And then you kiss them, you're like, oh no. And sometimes, they talk about stories where they're like, this person really isn't my type. Then they make out and their body's like
On fire.
fireworks.
Yeah.
Exactly. But there's always students who will come out either in class as a proud bisexual or a pansexual or omnisexual, and they've never been able to say this because they didn't know that it was normal, or they'll write about it. And at those times, sometimes I get all teary, misty about it, because I'm like, this is what I'm trying to do, is break these cycles of shame, break the cycles of abuse that happen with people. And that's really what kind of pushes me forward in what I do, because we need to break them.
What you just said, what they don't know is normal. Both, I'm curious, what is normal, right?
Well,
No,
typical.
no, but
Yeah.
but my point to you, you're reflecting on that is exactly that. That piece of validation, right? For them, for whoever is on that receiving piece, to know that they're not the only person who thinks differently
Yeah.
or feels differently or doesn't fit this binary system that we have created, right? Which we've done across the board in so many different ways,
Yeah.
categorize just two polarities to something that probably, and like you said, 1947, that screw probably doesn't fit a classic binary system.
Yep.
And I think I see the same, just like I said, talking to my kids. Most of the time, it's just having them hear me say, I thought that too when I was your age, right?
Yeah.
Just simply the validation that they know that they're not the only one who thinks that way.
Hmm.
You know this. We don't use the word normal in our house,
Hmm.
right? At all. I just don't like the word. My kids don't like the word. We use common for things that
Yep.
happen a lot, and I stray 100% away from the word normal. I think words really matter.
I do. It's interesting too when it comes to orientation, what we've been taught versus what's real. Um, I start to show them because they're social work students. I also get sociology, I get criminal justice. I get a lot of different majors coming to my classes. And I was like, when you start to understand the truth and when you feel these feelings in society and your family and your religion is telling you those feelings mean you're evil or bad, what happens is people kind of repress them. They fear them, and it comes out in very bad ways for our society with homophobic and transphobic hate and violence towards people because they're trying to basically beat those homoerotic desires out of themselves by hurting other people. And there's a lot of research, and
A
it's
lot of
been going on.
self-hatred. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really where it comes from because if you're really comfortable with who you are and your orientation, you don't hate on people. There's no reason. You might have a philosophical disagreement, but if you have a visceral body reaction, there's something within yourself
Ask
you're
yourself
hiding.
why. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ask yourself why you're feeling that way.
yeah. A lot of hurting people. Hurt people hurt people. You know how
Mm-hmm.
it works.
Hurt
So
people
true.
hurt people.
So you like to teach about that. What else should we talk about, Travis? Uh, Sexology as a field. Where do you think it's going?
I think it should kind of right now it seems it's like this like enigma thing. It's like sexology, but really it's sexual wellness on all the different areas of our life, but particularly spiritually. All right, so it's physical, it's emotional, psychological, but it's spiritual too. So the promotion of sexual wellness could affect so many different areas of our society in a good way.
Hmm.
So to make it more accessible, which is why we created that textbook, be like everyone should have this information for free
Hmm.
to decrease the stigma, decrease the shame and the pain,
Hmm.
and show people how to begin this healing path after you've been traumatized.
Yeah, like especially people who go through something like a physical health thing, they need to have safe spaces to talk about it. And I just realized, Amira, because you are an ER physician, that I don't know if I remember her name, but and she was in the program at the same time as us, and she did her PhD on anal sex, and she looked at like how people who have anal sex have nowhere to go to be like seen or treated or find a safe space, and that like ER physicians, out of all of them, they get to see a lot the most, like when people
You
stick
have
things.
no idea.
And that's what you guys laugh at behind closed doors the
And it's
most.
like, well, but, okay. We can backtrack through this, right? Because society has taught us that those things are fetishes, right? Society has taught us that those things are atypical. Society has taught us and stigmatized us for such a long time. And let's be honest, if you want to talk about the gender differences about who is behind the counter laughing at those jokes, it is one gender more than the other.
There you go.
So at the
Okay,
end of the
then.
day, let me
What's
just
that
say,
about?
at the end of the day, right? It comes from so much
Mhm.
inner, whether it's cultural, societal, familial, religious thoughts, beliefs about what is normal or typical or acceptable.
Hmm.
And when something makes you uncomfortable, you ask yourself, how do you reply or respond? 9 times out of 10, the best of us make a joke. The best. The worst of us hurt people,
Yeah.
right? So, mm, right. And then you throw it in there with that case, and I'm not excusing this, mixed in with the cardiac arrest next door. You look for levity, you look for a smile where you can find it in
Yeah.
the ER setting. So I'm not saying that any of those things are okay, but you're not wrong to hear those stories about the doctors behind the desk looking at those x-rays of who shoved what up what
Mm,
orifice, right? Because it surely happens a lot.
a
And
lot.
for most of the time, let's be honest, if you're sitting and talking to that patient, as I have been on the receiving end, it's for sexual stimulation. And why is that wrong or not okay, right?
Just
Like,
please make sure it's wider on the other end so that it
So it
doesn't,
doesn't get lost.
probably not a
It's not
live
breaking.
animal, like something without a heart. That would be preferable.
something without a heart, no gerbils,
Yeah.
please.
And
Do
we
no harm.
do not like pointy ends. They will hurt your intestine,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
your bowel. And
Can't
then
say you didn't learn anything on this
look,
podcast,
that's
guys.
a lot more than the anal stimulation you were hoping for. You'll
Yeah.
get an X-lap and a resection of your colon.
Yeah.
So
Ouch.
let's not go that way. But my whole point, though, is like the stigma around it comes from so many
Yeah.
layers. So
Well,
many layers.
there's also like a joke from nature. Of course, we're all female through the eggs. So we become male because of XY, with the sperm. Now, the G spot, the sponge around the urethra, for female bodies, that's the only way you can get to that is through the anus for male bodies. So the prostate is the G spot. So a lot of times that's what they're trying to reach, which is way more accessible if you have a female body. So it
And
comes
men have been taught and stigmatized to believe that any anal penetration is
Me.
somehow
exactly
directly homophobic.
and feminine.
And, well,
Wait.
and right, and or right,
Yeah.
and or, and so the reality is they may want it biologically. They want it biologically for very good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feels
And
good.
yet the path or the thought process or the method of achieving that
Mm.
is also, let's be honest, if there were safer ways, or not safer, there are safer ways. If people knew them and could access them, they might not put the gerbil up their butt.
Oh,
You know?
yeah. It's not
God.
sure in my head.
That's the name of this episode.
Oh,
I'm sure
But I mean, if it weren't so stigmatized, right?
well, yeah,
Or
yeah.
if they had a proper vibrator that was appropriate for, medically sound with the right material that's not going to cause infections or perforations, these things wouldn't end up being the case. But I guarantee you, those are not the people at home with those resources and support systems.
Yeah. Can I ask you guys, as people who have been through health issues, did you have professionals who brought up sexuality?
Zero
You?
times. Not one has asked me.
Mm-mm.
Not
Not
one.
one. And let's be honest, when I became paralyzed, I lost all function, physical, motor, and everything related from my breast line down.
Wow.
So you do the math.
And they said nothing.
Not even a word. And I was at the time married with 2 young kids. I had just had a baby and no one asked me. I was 3 months postpartum and no one asked me. Jack diddly.
Were you
To this day.
breastfeeding? Were you?
I had to
Yeah.
stop
Yeah, yeah.
breastfeeding, and that was like a very traumatic time for me in my life, partly because that was the part I didn't anticipate. I anticipate almost everything. And that was the one thing as it was all crumbling on me that I didn't see coming. But I had to stop because of the toxicity of my treatments.
Wow. That's a lot. And so nobody brought it up to you?
0.
0 times?
Oh, I just bought every vibrator and sex toy that I could get my hands on. I wanted to know what I could feel, how I
Yep.
could feel it, how deep I needed to penetrate to feel it, how much vibration. Sensory systems within our neurologic system aren't all the same. There's light touch, there's deep vibration, there's temperature, hot and cold. So why do you think things like KY jellies come with hot, cold sensations and
Mm-hmm.
vibrators come with vibration and sensory elements? Because our sensory system is super complex.
Hmm.
And I knew with the type of demyelination and neurologic disorder that I had, that it wasn't a straight transaction. I didn't know what I could and couldn't yet do, but I knew that it wasn't an all for none. It wasn't typical. I didn't have well, we can get into that, but the transverse myelitis versus the longitudinally extensive, which is the type I had, spared fibers in a way that's unpredictable. So until I did trial and error
Mm.
and figured it out for myself, I didn't know what did work and didn't work. But I didn't have anybody guiding me through that. I had no help of any kind. But I had safe spaces.
Hmm.
You were one for me, but not many.
Hmm.
Yeah, when I was younger in undergrad in Buffalo, I was an intern at Roswell Park Cancer Institute, and I was putting all the data in for thousands of um, people who have survived childhood cancer. And so one of the things that I noticed was so many people talked about they had issues around sexuality, or they just wanted to understand how the prostate surgery or
Would affect them.
would
Yeah,
affect them
absolutely.
or was affecting them. And their oncologist never answered and said, here's a number to a sex therapist. And so many of them really complained about that. Like, we went to the sex therapist, they've said we have problems, they try to pathologize us. We just wanted good information.
And one that's medical, biological.
Yeah.
How did the surgery affect me?
Yeah. And what to expect and how can I make things better? Like the whole trial and error. Like, sometimes you have to experiment, and here are some of the ways that you can do it. But the medical professionals were really uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable and uneducated. That's
Yeah.
just the truth. They don't know how to answer those questions. And I think a lot are uncomfortable answering those questions. And I think there's a third layer, which is in the physician medical world, we're so afraid to say something we're unsure of, right? Whether it's because we're scared to get sued, or we're scared to be not perfect, or we're scared that someone's going to complain about
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And if those complaints ended up in a letter to our administrator, right, about sex, right?
Oh, yeah.
Let's be honest, how would
Because of
that
the
come back
taboo.
around,
Yep.
right? So I think the reality is most of the physicians that I can speak on behalf of probably just feel ill prepared to speak on that.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Do you want to share what happened to you, or another episode?
Emergency brain surgery.
Yeah, that. No big deal.
Yeah, just that thing that happened
Oh,
to you.
yeah, yeah. The thing that nearly killed me. I never went to a doctor. I was like, nah, I'll just die. And I remember I had this pain in my head that was growing up years and years and years. And finally, it was the day before graduation where we had this rose sale going on, Westchester University. And I was in so much pain all night that I was just throwing up. Um, and I couldn't sleep. And I woke up, I was like, maybe I got 20 minutes of sleep. I had this weird dream. I woke up and I was like, Mindy, I've got to go to the hospital. And she's like, why? I go, I don't know, but I have this feeling I'm going to die. And she's like, what? So we went
Believe it
there.
when you feel it.
Yeah, and I didn't go the night before because it was a Friday night on a full moon. I'm like, I am never going to get in. I'm going to sit in that waiting room for hours.
Probably
And what's
true.
the point? Yeah.
Everybody comes in on the full moon.
We already
It
had that
does. Oh,
conversation
yeah.
with Rebecca.
Circadian rhythms, the
Rebecca.
sunlight
Oh, yeah.
Rebecca.
messes with you. But when I walked in, there was no one. So I went right to it. I went in. They asked me a bunch of questions. They're like, what's your pain level? 1 to 10. I'm like 11.
Whisked you off to a CT scan.
Well, not yet.
Mhm.
They go, we have a CT scan or we can give you drugs. What do you want?
Uh-oh.
And I was like, a CT scan? And so that's the last thing I remembered until I woke up at HUP. And my brother was freaking out, and something had
Which
happened.
is not the hospital that you
No, I was
went
at Taylor
down at.
Hospital.
You got
Good.
transferred. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
you.
Yeah. So Mindy, my partner, had to make this decision where she's like, what's going to happen? Like, he's dying. She's like, why is he turning white? They're like, he's bleeding in his
Head.
yeah, and he's dying. And she's like, what am I going to do? She's like, well, we have someone who could do it. They don't have much experience.
Yeah.
Like,
You're on
or
call, whoever.
yeah, exactly.
Or we transfer you.
And she goes, but we could also get a ambulance to go to HUP, and there's Dr. Lucas, which is an amazing and
Neurosurgeon.
yeah. So she's like, okay, I'll do that. I said, but very likely he's going to die on the way.
In the transport.
Yeah. So something happened to me, and I didn't remember till later on. During that time, my brother was there. I was so calm and peaceful at that point. I think I realized that I did good. I could die. I'm fine. I did what I'm supposed to do here.
And in that moment, it was out of your hands.
Yeah.
Be
And
honest.
I told my brother, I was like, this might be it, bro. I was like, so make sure Mindy looks like she's okay. She ain't okay. She's just a powerhouse pit bull, and she's making sure that I'm taken care of, but she's really struggling. I was like, so suck it up, stop freaking out, and help out Mindy. And so I remember I went in, and the whole theater started setting up. There's like 15 people, and I saw all these video screens, and I was like, what is that big black? They go, that's the blood in
Your
your
head.
skull.
Deal.
And so yeah, months of rehab, of relearning how to type and think and talk and walk and all that kind of stuff.
So, what was your sex drive like when you were in that recovery phase?
What sex drive?
Right. But that's my point. Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's my point.
Yeah. And
And, what space and what hierarchy did that fall on? When you're literally learning to use the bathroom
Talk.
again,
yeah.
wipe yourself and take a step in front of
Oh,
yourself stable.
I still had so much of body shame that was part of me where I would not get in the shower because the nurse had to help for like 2 weeks. And I was like, I'm not going to get naked in front of a woman I don't know, dude. And finally, I was like, I can't stand the smell of myself.
You want to talk about body shame. I don't. I only now will reflect on it as body shame that I felt in myself or embarrassment. But I used to tell this story. I think I've told it to you a few times a little differently.
Mm.
I used to tell this story as like a look how great I was or how wonderful I was at doing something. But the reality is, when I was going through rehab, if they told me I had to be ready at 8 o'clock, I got up 3 hours earlier to do it entirely myself. So no one had to see me do it. No one had to see me struggle. No one had to watch me try to function less than the capacity that I wanted to be at. And, that to me was my strength as opposed to a reflection really of shame.
But when I got a shower, Mindy was there too.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, thank God. It's like all this, it didn't matter. Like I was just like, thank God I'm getting clean. But I got to share a quick story there that was really, I'm going to make sure I don't get all choky thinking about it. So
That's okay. It's a safe space.
yeah, one of the young men who were helping him and his uncle, they work together. So they're just like, cleaning the bedpans, helping everybody else out. And I was really constipated because they had me on all this kind of medication. And I was looking really wolfy. And he kept saying, hey, if I bring in my shaving kit, could I shave you? I go, no, man, I'm good. So this is one day I'm sitting on, constipated on the toilet for like an hour. And he comes in, he's like, come on, Travis, just let me help you out, man. I was like, all right. So here's this dude. shaving me
Mhm.
with so much care while I'm trying to take a dump is the most humiliating, but the most beautiful
Just think
moment.
about the
It
humanity.
is. It changed everything. He like woke me up. And just to see this person who didn't know me, just, from the time I was there, willing to give that kind of love to another person, it was huge. And it was a giant lesson, a spiritual lesson in
And
life.
your willingness to receive it,
Yeah.
really, in that moment.
Mm.
Because it sounded like it had been offered, but a lot of boundaries within you
Well, yeah, and a
being
man to
willing
man
to accept
affection.
it. That's, well,
Yeah, yeah.
what does toxic masculinity mean to you? What does the word mean to you? Because it's a
It's
shifting
it's
phrase,
it's
right?
overused.
It's a shifting phrase.
It's become masculinity in general, right? And I see masculinity through divine masculinity and divine femininity. So toxic masculinity is masculine energy that abuses and harms. It's violent. It's the same thing as toxic feminine.
Energy, yeah.
Abuses, causes harm.
Hmm.
And it should not be outside of that. If it does not cause harm, it is not toxic. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And because I listen to so many people, and this is really tough for young men, they don't know what to do. They were brought up like to be polite, to hold open the doors, to carry things because they're like, hey, you got the bigger muscles. This is just do what you got to do. Be a person that goes in and offers a hand, help get people unstuck when they're in ditches, and now they're like, but that's seen as toxic now.
Yeah.
So no one knows what to do, So I think we really got to look at it with fresh eyes and understand that there is a difference between our energies,
For sure.
fire energy and water, and they're both powerful.
That's right.
They need each other, but they balance each other out. And
I'm so proud of like the men's group that we're running right now. And we have such a great group of men. And I told Travis, like, as long as we get 3 men, we make a community. And
yep,
I think what hetero women are looking for are men who work on themselves. And we created a safe space. And I think we've been exploring a lot of these topics, like
yeah,
talking about the G spot, but then also talking about the inner voice and how to be a good man.
yeah.
And I would just like
Making more of Travis's,
I
Oh,
was
stop.
I was just
like
as that
replicate him.
heterosexual woman on the other end looking for a partnership, right? That I think men traditionally, and I'm speaking obviously from the outside looking in, but have been maybe culturally or community taught that safety means a physical or a financial
Yeah.
element of safety and providing. And I think as a current heterosexual woman looking for partnership, emotional safety is that piece. And there's so much stigma for men to offer emotional safety
Yeah.
because somehow that is not masculine.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the piece that I would really like to see redefined because until all of those elements of providership and safety, which includes so much of an emotional piece, women in our world generation,
Mm.
whether you're comparing that to 50 years ago, aren't looking and compare that to 300 or 3 million. The physical safety is not the same piece, right?
That's true.
Right.
We don't need that level of protection. Our families, our clans don't need that level of protection. Talk about financially. Well, that's not how we define what safety means for us collectively, I would say anymore. But that emotional piece is what
Hmm.
men need to, I feel, work into their own definitions of masculinity.
That's right.
Yeah, we worked on exactly that and kind of redefining because, need to be a provider. What does that mean?
Yep.
And safety, protection, what does that mean? So they've been taught that being a provider means you got to make a lot of money and you got to make more than whoever you're with
Yeah.
And protect space.
at the base, right?
Correct.
And then as a protector, you need to be able to kill people
Great.
or hurt people. And there's
As our
so many different
cavemen
ways. Yeah, yeah.
ancestors
But
did
that's what they're
before.
taught. So when we explore all the different ways that you can provide safety to be, let your partner be the person they want to be.
It's an emotional safety.
Yeah. So that's all we need is a lot more information readily available to let people understand how this works.
In groups and talking about it. And
Access to human sexuality.
yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Amira is going to sum up our episode. She has 1 minute to put Travis in a nutshell. Go.
We talked about sex, baby. We talked about you and me. We talked about all the good things and the bad things that may be. We talked about sex.
We talked about sex. You were like, I prepared this. Good. Yeah. Okay, go on.
Oh, I just, I partly did that because I think this topic just needs more smiles and more levity and more safety. And however we get there, let's do it, right? That's the truth. And it's all about making it accessible tool. So if it takes a song, a poem, a book, Travis's new book, Sexuality Concepts in Social Work. Did I get that correct? Yep.
Concept, yeah, yeah.
Correct. And I just think wherever it becomes a lighter topic for you to talk about it, if it takes a song, a book, a friend, our podcast, start talking about it.
Yeah.
Because the reality is what's out there carries so much stigma.